Good morning to all of you. I welcome you to this session of PL SQL programming. In today's session, I'm going to discuss a few trigger examples with you. In my previous video with you, I discussed about the creation of these two triggers. In today's video, I'll be discussing the trigger which will generate a primary key automatically for a student table with columns roll number, name and marks. That means we'll first create a student table, and then while we are filling values, we won't be providing the values for the roll number, which would be generated automatically with the help of the trigger that we would be creating. So let me start this PL SQL session with you. And the first step, as a first step, we can create the student table. So I can create the student table here, and with columns roll number, name and marks of type number. So now I've created this table. If I just check the values here in this table, obviously there won't be any rows here. So no rows are there. Now what I want is that if I insert some value into this student table, I would be inserting values for name and marks, and the value for the roll number would be automatically generated through my trigger. So for that, I'll just open up a script file here in which I would be creating the trigger. So let's write the trigger syntax here. So I can name this as the trigger name as 2 underscore prime. That's the name that I've chosen for my trigger. And obviously this trigger should fire before we can insert a value into the student table, right? So I would be using a before trigger. So before insert on student. Okay, before insert on student, referencing old as old, new as new. So you understand these are the reference aliases. For old values I'll be using the word old, and for new values I'll be using the word new. And since it is a row trigger, it must affect each row, so we should write here for each row. Then I'll write the keyword declare. We remember while we were using procedures and functions, we did not write declare in procedures and functions, even though we declared local variables. But in case of a trigger, if you need to make some local declarations, the keyword declare should be there. Kindly keep this thing in mind. So I'm going to use two variables here, last underscore val. I'll explain it to you what they mean, and new underscore val. You see, to generate roll numbers automatically, what I'll do is I'll pick up the maximum roll number value from the student table, okay, and add 1 to it, okay. And let's suppose that I want this as my roll number series. The first roll number that would be put in the table is 2233600. The next one is 2233601, and so on. So that is how I want my trigger to behave. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll pick up the maximum roll number and store it in last underscore val. Okay. And to generate the new underscore val value, I would add 1 to this last underscore val. Okay. So how to get the last value, how to get the max value? So I'll write something like select max. You've done this max function, max roll number. So we must write an into clause, into last underscore val from student. Okay. So now what this should do, that it should pick up the maximum value from the student table, maximum value of roll number. Okay. And obviously what I'll do is I will generate the new value of roll number like this. That should be my method, right? But see, for the first time when the table is blank, this select max roll number would fetch you a null value because no record is there in the table. So we must take care of that null value. So for that we can use a null value function known as NVL. So it goes like this. NVL has got two arguments. So what it means that if a maximum value of roll number is found, it would be substituted into this. Okay. Otherwise, 0 would be substituted into last underscore val. So what I need to do is I need to check here if last underscore val is 0. Okay, that would mean that this max returned a null, so this 0 is given to last val. So if last val is 0, then obviously I am inserting the first record into the student table. So I can write here as a starting for my series that this is the first value. Okay, otherwise what I need to write here is that new underscore val is equal to last underscore val plus 1. I hope this idea is clear to you what we are trying to do. Okay, once you have determined the new value either through this or through this, okay, you can substitute it for the new value of the roll number by using the alias new. So new roll number is equal to new underscore val. Okay, that is what we should do for automatic creation of roll number. I'll explain it again to you that with this select statement you are trying to find the maximum value of roll number from your student table. But first time around, when the student table is not having any records in it, this would return a null value. Okay, to handle that null value, we use this null value function NVL, which has two arguments. First one is this, and the second one is 0. So if your this max roll number returns a null value, then 0 is given to last underscore val. If it picks up some value, then it is given to last underscore val. So we check that if last underscore val is equal to 0, that means that we are going to insert one first record into our table. So we suggest that the roll number should be 2233600 like we discussed. Okay, and then it would be given to this new alias so that it can be substituted into the table when we use the insert statement. And for the second time around, when you use this function max, it would return this value. Okay, and this last underscore val is equal to 0 would be false, and the new value would be this value plus 1, and so on. Okay, so let's just save this and run this. So I'm going to check this. So trigger has been created. So we are successful in creating this trigger. Now this trigger is going to fire whenever I'm going to insert some value into this student table. And I'll show you that currently there are no, I'll just copy this line here. Currently there is no record in the student table. So what I'll do is I'll insert, or before that, okay, I'll use this insert into student, and remember we just need to give the values for name and marks. Okay, name and marks, and the value for roll number would be given automatically. So I can give the name as Ajay and marks as 78. Okay, so if I run this, it will say one row created, and if you check that row, obviously that roll number 2233600 will be generated automatically. Why it happened? Because when we use this insert statement, okay, when we use this insert statement, this trigger got fired. Okay, and since the table was having no values, no rows, so this max returned a null. So what this NVL function did was it substituted 0 into this last value. So if this if became true, and new value variable generated the value as 2233600, which was given to the roll number column here. Okay, and if I run it again now, if I run my insert statement again here, okay, and say if I can write here Vijay, just an example, okay, and mark says 56, okay, So if you now select, you can see that the roll number generated is 2233601. Why this happened? Because now we have one value into our roll number, that is 2233600 when we use the second insert. So this max returned 2233600, and through this line number 14, the new value was generated as 2233600 plus 1, that is 2233601, and that is why the roll number is generated. If you keep on generating now, you will keep on getting the answers that you are looking for. Okay, so you can say right here. Okay, and if you look into the value, it would be given the roll number as this. So that is how you can generate, a primary key sort of a thing automatically for a table using this trigger. That's all for this video. In my next video, I'll come up with more examples on triggers.